On the reading for the quiz.
Why does not sleep with all characters as promiscuous? Why is it promiscuous?
Does anyone know?
Well, right after he says that, he goes on to explain how they like cheat on each other or whatever, or at least Titania and Theseus are together, and Oberon and the Queen of the Amazon people sleep with each other. So they're kind of promiscuous in that way.
Did you hear that?
Oberon sleeps with the Queen of the Amazon, I forgot her name, and Theseus sleeps with Titania, like right before they get married, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So his point in the thing was is he just took it for granted that that all of the lovers were wife swapping or girlfriend swapping and having threesomes and stuff, and that it wasn't just the lovers, that it was also the royalty and also the fairy people. Yeah.
Why did you think there were secrets in Midsummer Nights Dream? I didn't quite understand that.
It was commissioned for a wedding, so everybody there would have known each other. A lot of inside jokes.
Oh, okay.
So one of the ongoing sort of there's a line of thought that's sort of out of favor, but probably kind of true, that Shakespeare's kind of writing to two levels, and he's got his little inside bunch that will get the high jokes and the sexual innuendo and the in jokes too, and then there's just people like us that are just kind of going along going, oh, it rhymes. Another question back there?
Why does not think that Shakespeare included them, since he finds them to have no bearing on the plot? That is, the characters, the nobility and stuff like that.
I think that was just sort of the same thing, like, because the audience like knew each other, the people who didn't really have any bearing in the play represented like people in the community. They're supposed to like represent royals or whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's what Cott says. Yeah.
So, I know he's referencing a painter he thought he'd derive his animal eroticism from. And he was saying it wasn't Chagall, that it was Bosch. Is that right?
Goya. Goya is my favorite Goya painting. Is Kronos devouring his children. It's this big, shaggy-haired guy biting the head off of a baby. He put it in his basement. All right.
I tried really hard to figure out what the BS symbolizes. There was so much in there about the ass.
Yeah.
He's just like in that time, an ass was just a truly sexual being.
Yeah. That's what Cott says. I really just had you read Cott because I want to argue against Cott. No, but actually the reason that I had you read Cott was that a lot of people think that essay is the most influential essay on Midsummer Nights Dream in the 20th century, and the big, aside from that movie, the big famous performances of Midsummer Nights Dream have been very Cott influenced. In particular, when in the 70s, the Royal Shakespeare Company, and it was just really weird, and there were a lot of bubbles, and it was just a white set, and the whole bottom costume was just a nose, and there was like when the only thing I remember from the description and the photos they had of it was when they were taking Bottom to Titania's bower, the fairies had him picked up and shoved the forearm between his legs like that as they're carrying him off. That's the only thing I remember. I don't know. Yeah. Whoa. Who wants the awesome one? I'll take the awesome one.
Pass it back here.
Yeah. One of you looks a little fluey. Don't want the flu. Alright. So, I guess, well, we had the uncannily asked questions. Huh? A feature peculiar to Shakespeare is the blank of love. Yeah. The lack of distinctness between Demetrius and Lysander and Helena and Herminia means that the lovers are essentially interchangeable. Oh, that was awesome. Why does Cott say that the behavior of all the characters, even the royal ones, is promiscuous?
Because they all trade partners.
Yeah, a bunch of. Blank is the first to arise, though she had gone to sleep last. For her, it was the craziest night. Why she changed lovers? She's ashamed. She has drunk too much.
Yeah.
Insert joke here. For Cott, the slimy-haired, hairy, sticky creatures that the fairy song evokes arouses feelings of sexual blank. Revulsion was the. I'm looking for some sort of revulsion. I mean, what are you guys into, man? Describe Cott's Titania. Yeah. Oh, Cott. So see, this is why, between you and me, I'd have been just fine if the 60s never happened. But the characteristics of the ass are most important. What characteristics of the ass are most important? Yeah, those things. How does Cott describe what takes place when Titania falls for bottom? That's not a terribly well-worded question.
It's like real and unreal, repulsive.
You said like it was a liberated sexual bestial desire.
Doesn't this issue raped him pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take either of those, any of those. Scott thinks that the liberated lovers were their real selves and their blanks. Yeah, very fantasy with her. And what famous Goya does Scott think resembles the bestiality of Midsummer Nights Dream? And then the Scott's vision of Titania's court, that was charming.
2-foot men and women salivating. Blowing hot.
Yeah. So this as I said, I'm a little hostile to Cott's reading. I think that, I don't know, anybody gonna say vote and think that Cott's right? Anyone wants to say he's more than 50% right, but less than 100% right? Does anybody think that any sex at all happened in Midsummer Nights Dream? Any inside jokes or anything? We got one hesitant, two hesitant.
Wouldn't we have to be the people that it was actually designed for, the insiders?
Yeah, I guess. But you can tell people have sex in Shakespeare plays. It's not.
What are the hints?
And we'll see it happen.
It's like in movies, they never say, in TV shows and stuff, they don't generally say it explicitly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in my room.
Yeah, but we'll see. When we get to Measure for Measure, they do a bed trick because this guy tries to coerce this girl into having sex with him, and then she says okay, but they switch him with the girl that likes the guy, and then they turn off all the lights so he goes in and has sex with the other girl. It's a bed trick. It's funny. So I don't know. So a lot of people. Do we want to go over the dreams and the brain science PowerPoint first, or do you want to talk about this first? Today's class has 2 parts. PowerPoint first? Okay. Yeah, we can yammer on about this or not. I'm all about these PowerPoints now. I don't really know how to play it. Here we go. That's not a good sign. this again. All right, and there goes the fourth wall. Yes. Can I see a hand? All right. And the other thing that I'm real super good at. Oh, for crying out, okay. All right. So, to sleep or chance to dream. What plays that from? Hamlet, yeah. And so he wants to kill himself, right? This is the famous to be or not to be speech. And the reason that he doesn't is because, he's thinking of, like death as sleep, but he's like, wait a second, sleeping kind of sucks. All right. So there's in the classical tradition, which is, everybody knows that dreams are super meaningful and predict the future, right? But not all of them, because sometimes they don't. So there's the true dreams that pass through a horn gate, and then there's the false ones that pass through an ivory gate, and they actually have these gates. I think it's in Hades. It depends on the poem. So I don't think that's what's going on in this. So then we pass some time. And then so we've got the three ways of looking at the meaning of dreams. And one is the prophetic, which is a correctly interpreted dream can predict personal and even world events. Dreams provide clues into the future happenings of some great cosmic narrative. And I don't think that they have that they've done the work to find out if this is a cultural universal, but you see it a lot, particularly in. I'm trying to think of like an old great epic like Gilgamesh and there's lots in the Bible, there's lots in Virgil, Homer of dreams being a big thing. So we might be sort of disposed to think that way. But remember our comedy tragedy thing. That means that everything follows a law of necessity and all future events are already determined, and you can somehow tap into this great narrative that you're in the middle of. Then there's the Freudian meaning of dreams, which is a correctly interpreted dream can uncover an unconscious intention that is at variance with the conscious mind. Dreams provide clues into the truth of your desire. All dreams are wish fulfillment. And then I have to just put the note that he eventually abandoned me. All dreams are wish fulfillment. And I have to tell you one of my favorite things about Freud. One of my favorite things he ever did. He was giving a talk about how all dreams are wish fulfillment. And everybody's coming up with these dreams that obviously weren't wish fulfillment, but he's explaining to all of them. And then this one lady comes and really stumps him. And he's sitting there, and it was the second day of the presentation, and he says, "I've got it. You wanted me to be wrong." So that's either your favorite thing about Freud or why you think he's an idiot. But so the logic of this is that and the old Freudian joke, you can just says, "Let me tell you about your dream. You're not. You want to sleep with your mother." So, but it's the idea here is that your brain is acting out, your mind, I guess, is acting out fantasy scenarios, but you've got this thing called the dream sensor that won't let you know just how disgusting, what a pervert you really are. So, so what your brain really wants to say is, like, I want to sleep with my mom, and the sensor's like, no. And it's like, well, I want to sleep with my teacher, and then the sensor's like, raw. So even though you're really dreaming about sleeping with your mom, your dream is just sleeping with your teacher. Then we've got the skeptical. Dreams are just a bunch of fluff. Wandering fancies, random minor neurochemical short circuits producing vague and fragmented images and affects that waking, fanciful minds wrongly interpret as meaningful or prophetic. Now this view has seemed to have been with us almost as long as the prophetic, possibly as long. I think it's just some people just naturally think that dreams just are nonsense, and some people are just more spiritual or whatever. Should we vote? Dreams meaningful? Random nonsense? All right. We're in a minority.
Maybe all three.
All three. Okay, well, that's not a cop-out. But what does Shakespeare think? Well, Shakespeare, because you can't say Shakespeare thinks this, even though everybody says, like as Shakespeare said, put money in my purse. No, that was Iago. So we've got to keep that in mind, right? So in Macbeth we'll see prophetic-ish dreams, and then we've got Hermia seems to have maybe a Freudian dream about the snake, the eating her heart and Lysander laughing at her, and that sort of really happens, right? So maybe would that be prophetic or Freudian? I guess kind of both, right? Depends on if you think that's what she really wants, if it's wish fulfillment. Huh. But I think generally people take Shakespeare's word on dreams is from Romeo and Juliet's delightful Mercutio talk about Queen Mab, who we see in Midsummer Nights Dream, incidentally. And in this state she gallops night by night through lovers' brains, this is Queen Mab, through lovers' brains. And then they dream of love, or courtiers' knees that dream on courtesy straight, or lawyers' fingers who straight dream on fees, or ladies' lips who straight on kisses dream, which oft the angry Mab with blisters plagues, because their breasts with sweetmeats tainted are. Sometimes she gallops over a courtier's nose. He likes courtiers a lot currently. And then dreams he of smelling out a suit. I like the idea of just sniffing somebody's suit, but apparently that's about filing like a lawsuit. And sometime comes she with a tight pig's tail, tickling a parson's nose as he lies asleep. Then dreams he of another benefice. Sometimes she driveth over a soldier's neck, and then dreams he of cutting foreign throats, of breaches, ambuscados, Spanish blades, of health's 5 fathom deep. Health's 5 fathom deep. He's drinking deeply to health. So he's drinking, so that's kind of big too, I guess. And then anon, drums in his ear, at which he starts and wakes, and being thus frightened swears a prayer or two and sleeps again. Anybody know the context of this speech? You remember from Romeo and Juliet? Romeo's coming up with some nonsense. He's trying to tell his dream. Don't you love it when people try to tell you your dream? When people know that I've got a training in psychology and psychoanalysis, so everybody wants me to know their dream and interpret it for them. It's just horrible. I hate it. All right. I don't know what you guys thought, because you didn't say, but most people put Mercutio into the skeptical camp of dream interpretation because he's just telling Romeo to shut up. And we think that probably Romeo doesn't get around to telling what the dream is because Mercutio, thank goodness, does get him to shut up. But he probably had some prophetic nonsense, right, knowing Romeo? Yeah. But let's look at what Mercutio actually says. Okay. So is the highlighting? Yeah. So lovers' brains dream of love. Courtiers dream of courtesies. Lawyers on fees. Ladies of kisses. Suit. Well, I mean, everybody's kind of dreaming about something relevant, right? Maybe wish fulfillments? Yeah, because, I mean, this is good, right? I mean, dreams of drinking, that's cool. Except, when we highlight the other stuff, which off the angry Mab of blisters plagues because their breasts. So what does this mean?
Well, it's definitely not wish fulfillment. Let's see something.
No, what are the blisters? Yeah. So that's not wish fulfillment. And then we've got this. So he's having a good dream, but then drums in his ears, and then he freaks out and he's scared, right? And the most comprehensive dream study ever done, they found that 70% of dreams have are negative emotions. So people dream about the things that they do that have importance in their lives, and scenarios are played out in these dreams, seemingly independent of the dreamer's intentions. as you know, dreams are weird, right? Because they happen to us. I mean, it's happening in our brain, but it's like we're watching something, and we're not. We can't like say, okay, now I can fly, or like lift stuff. Which and it seems like that. Does it ever bother you? Like when you're dreaming that you're at work, you're just like, God, really? My dreams? But which is different than daydreaming. Like I never ever daydream about work. Do you? Yeah, no, it's work. But often in ways that tend toward rewarding resolutions. But not all these scenarios end happily. So reality in the form of herpes simplex 1 or war drums can ruin a dream fantasy scenario. The dream fantasy is precarious. But we could say all of that stuff about a Midsummer Nights Dream too, right? Maybe. This is the a ripped off from Wikipedia picture of the sleep cycle. Everyone familiar with this? This is fun. So you first go to sleep and then you go to stage 1. And this is stage 1 is my favorite because that's when you dream you're falling off a skateboard and you flop out of bed. And then it gets deeper, and then you start getting the dreams that are associated with stage 1 are just like that. So like if you think that you're having a dream about being anxious about a test, you're still in stage 1 because that's not really a dream. So these don't have images. There's no narrative content. And then you get kind of fuzzy. There's some people think that when you're in the deep sleep, maybe you might be dreaming sort of vividly, and probably I don't know. We still got a lot of ways to go in this, as far as I know. But then the REM sleep, which is happens in the sleep cycle, so you go through this many throughout the night, and then that's when the REM is when your brain's going at full speed, and well, not at full speed, but parts of your brain are going at or above full speed. So that's when you start getting the interesting dreams. So rapid eye movement, REM sleep, only occurs in mammals. So people are thinking now that it's important in memory reconsolidation, but the studies seem to indicate that they can't make it just REM that's important. The whole sleep cycle seems to be a way of sort of burning the memories into the clay of the brain. Yes, sir? Question?
What's reconsolidation?
All right. So you've got different things, different kind of memory systems working in your brain, and there's like emotional memories and there's visual images, and they're all kind of just floating around. But as you know, you don't remember everything. So what reconsolidation does is sort of takes it out of the short-term memory and burns it into the long-term memory. So it tries to attach a emotion to an image, and so it's the memories that you remember. That's why I always try to scare people when we're at important parts in the lecture. We'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in this somewhere. So the parts that really fire up during REM sleep are the parts of the brain with not receiving visual images, obviously, but for interpreting them, kind of making sense of them. So the parts of your brain where, like if somebody gets a lesion there or a bump on the head in the right place, like they can't recognize faces. They can recognize everything else. They can see everything, but they can't recognize it. They can't interpret it as a face. Like you start getting into these weird cases of like the man who thought his wife was a hat and all this stuff. And then emotion production, and primarily the centers that are involved with fear and anxiety, the amygdala and the anterior cingulate. So what you've got these two systems going on of just visual interpretation, not production. So it's going to be running all these visuals that from the last day, from from the last year, from the last when you were 2 or whatever, are swirling in there, and then plus just random emotions. And the effect is so lifelike that probably the reason that mammals were able to develop REM sleep was because that the body's completely paralyzed during it. That's like the weird thing about REM sleep. All this other stuff isn't really weird. The weird thing is that you're in complete body paralysis. And this is a good thing because when this malfunctions, you walk around in your sleep and eat raw chicken. A colleague of mine wouldn't keep chicken in her house because she was terrified that she would wake up in the middle of the night and sleep eat raw chicken. Or like there's the guy that really was asleep and drove 14 miles and killed his in-laws and then drove to the police station and really didn't remember anything about it.
I don't know about that.
They found a tumor.
Well, that's different from sleeping.
But I mean, crazy things happen. So that's the important thing. I mean, and then just the short term, you like punch your, like you like punch your husband, that kind of thing. So sometimes we have little malfunctions like that. Anybody ever done that? Yeah. So what we would think the experience of REM sleeping would look like was that you'd have fragmented and logically incongruous visual images. Yes. Strong emotional feelings, especially fear and anxiety. Oh, yes, your anxiety is really a libidinal desire to sleep with your mother. Yes. And some kind of not necessarily plausible but meaningful correlation between 1 and 2. Sounds like my dreams. And then the emergence of some kind of narrative logic as a result of 3. Because this is what we do. Like you look at the clouds, pattern recognition. I think that Michael Schwimmer guy or whatever calls it patternicity. I wish he wouldn't. But the brain's looking for patterns. That's how we make sense of the world. So but of course, I mean, and then the reason, like paradoxically, is that it seems so meaningful because it's just totally random. So you've really gotta get in there to get to the meaning of it, right? So why dream? Well, we know that mammals deprived of sleep don't function well. If you want somebody to admit that anything that you want, sleep deprive them. This is how children break parents. So it's so if you go 14 days without food or water, you might live. If you go 14 days without sleep, you won't. And then so you get these people like POWs that sign these things saying that America's the devil and that capitalism is wrong and all this stuff, and then they emerge later and they're just like, yeah, I didn't mean any of that, and these real hardcore people that never would break under torture like that. And it's just like, no, they said that I could sleep, and then it doesn't. It's the long term effects are minimal, so you can get away with doing it and not get in trouble. It's like the same person that was afraid of sleep eating does a lot of work with children, and she's got this thing mastered where she can pinch their chin, and it's just the most horrific, painful thing. Just the whole brain, your whole head just goes numb. You kind of rock back and it's like, and you can't scream because you're paralyzed. But so she can do this, but then he's like, Mommy, she pinched my chin, and like, oh, yeah.
If you go a while without sleep, can your body catch up? Is that actually possible? Like, sometimes you don't sleep very much and then you'll sleep like extra, but that ruins your sleep.
Yeah, it goes so like the idea is that like you get 4 hours of sleep 3 nights, and you sleep 12 hours the 4th night. Does everything come out as a wash? The easy answer is no, because of what needs to happen during sleep. So I mean, you live and stuff, but when we get to the memory reconsolidation, this is where that key. This is why cramming is so not a good idea. But we'll get there. Yeah.
Wait, so what is it about this woman teaching? I don't get it. Like.
Oh no, well, because it's funny because she can do it, so she keeps the kids in line, and when they tell on her, all she can say is that she pinches my chin. And there's no bruise or anything, so she's totally getting away with child abuse.
Is that what you have to do with sleep deprivation? I missed it. It's not me questioning you. I just missed
it might not. You might have caught me in a superfluous digression.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's the chicken. It's the stupid chicken. See, that's how. This is why PowerPoints are important for me, to keep me from doing it. So I'll be, just watch, when I get older, I'll be one of those professors that just spends the whole time talking about his dogs. So So sleeping and dreaming are necessary for forming durable memories. So this is where you get to the catching up on sleep. If you cut your sleep down, say you usually, and apparently everyone needs different amounts of sleep. So say you're an 8-hour sleeper, and you cut it down to 6. You don't burn the memories in as well as you would in 8 hours. And you know, if you don't sleep within 48 hours, you're not gonna you lose all that part of your life. You're not gonna remember the important stuff from that. So sleep is important. And then this is a fun fact. So anyone know what anterograde amnesia does? So the other kind of amnesia, I can't remember what it is.
Retrograde.
Thank you. Is when you can't remember anything before the bonk on the head. And this is when you can't remember anything after the bonk on the head. You can't form new memories. But if you stick one of these people on Tetris all day and then they dream about the Tetris, they learn from that and they get better at Tetris even though they don't remember playing Tetris. Weird. And then the amount of REM sleep decreases with age. So it seems to be involved in brain development because we know that the youngsters' brains are developing and dying much faster than our brains. They lose a lot of neurons. You can tell. Talk to those stupid kids. So it's I put maybe, as far as we know right now, it is critical for imprinting the cognitive maps, homunculi, and as-is systems necessary for the kind of interaction with others and the environment that humans and other mammals have. And it seems to be like a way that mammals, especially the REM sleep, have. I mean, if we didn't have sleep, then we wouldn't be us, and our brains wouldn't work the way that they do. So when we're looking for pills that make us not have to sleep, we're not doing ourselves any credit. Because really, that's all it's really. Because like you think to rest your body and stuff, yeah, sort of. But you can run a marathon or do a triathlon and not sleep particularly well that night. So I mean, it's a weird thing. So then we've got this guy. He's from Harvard, so you know it's true. The unique physiology of sleep, and perhaps even more so of REM sleep, shifts the brain/mind into an altered state in which it pulls together disparate, often emotionally charged and weakly associated memories into a narrative structure. This process of memory reactivation and association is, in fact, also a process of memory consolidation and integration that enhances our ability to function in the world, which is just kind of what I was saying, except for smarter. So so the thing that's going on is this sort of what I was describing before, the charging the visual images with emotional meaning, just sort of this testing ground for stuff. So this is what we should expect in a REM dream. Unstable, shifting identities and emotions attached to those identities. Emotions should be fairly consistent, but what they are attached to need not be. So hypothetically, you could feel the exact same love for a series of different people or things. Does that ever happen to somebody in a dream? It's like I'm beating up, Jason Busanich from 3rd grade, but it looks like one of you, but I know it's Jason Busanich. Those identities and emotions lack a logical relationship. One could find oneself sexually attracted to, say, an ass. Or something inappropriate. Whoa, bug. Look at that. I don't think that was supposed to come up yet. The central emotion should be anxiety or fear, and the interpretive apparatus should try to make sense of that fear into a plausible, non-catastrophic narrative that both accounts for and contains the anxiety of fear. This is where Freud kind of starts creeping back, because the reason that your brain's dealing with all this anxiety and fear and not the pleasurable emotions is it's trying to figure out ways to deal with the anxiety and fear. So that's why you get you get sort of wish-fulfilling type feelings to a lot of dreams. And then Freud even said this. He said the biggest wish fulfillment of all is it was only a dream. So it kind of just puts the nightmare in its place, so when you wake up, you're a little emotionally charged, but you're like, whew, relief, right? Let's go back. And then again, this is sort of exactly what's going on in Midsummer Nights Dream, right? We can attach this all to different characters. So we've got who's got the big anxiety person, and then Titania is attracted to the ass, and everything's shifting. And Shakespeare was pretty smart. We recall Lysander, who hilariously, anytime you put hilariously in parentheses like that, I think it's funny when you're reading like really dry academic prose. Somebody says hilariously, I don't know. It's a juxtaposition. That attributes the effect of the magical fairy juice to the operations of what Theseus would call cool reason. Even better, he thinks that he never reasoned before he felt the effects of the love juice. So, so he says, who would not exchange a raven for a dove? The will of man is by his reason swayed, and reason says you are the worthier maid. And when he's rhyming, he's got something to say. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Things growing are not ripe until their season, so I, being young, till now, ripe not to reason. And touching now the point of my human skill, reason becomes martial to my will, and leads me to your eyes. This is Shakespeare having fun with rhymes. It's really hard to, Johnny Cochran aside, to take people seriously when they're rhyming. You should try it next time you argue with your significant other. Plan it out beforehand and just write out rhymes. I'm sick of you saying what, and you smell just like a butt.
Quick way to get slapped.
I get slapped a lot. So this is a great example of a dream reason in action. So I'm not going to read this whole thing aloud because that's a chunk. But the point is, this guy has this big, elaborate dream involving all of these characters from the French Revolution, and they're all just this big, elaborate, long, like epic, seems like all-night dream, right? And climbs on the scaffold, slowly bound to the plank by the executioner, and then puts his head in the thing. The guillotine falls. Then he wakes up, and all that happened was part of the bed fell down and hit him in the neck. So just in that instant of the hitting back in the neck, the dream. This is how dreams work. So this is what the dream did to make sense of just that sensation, just instantaneously. Crazy. But yeah, so this is a great example of how this after the fact reasoning, what dreams are doing to you. So you start with the affect or the sensation. Affect is an emotional sensation. And then it's more or less randomly attached to an object. So then reason comes in and explains the relationship that you're dreaming of a hamburger. There's the hamburger again, you know what I'm dreaming of. And paralyzing fear and attached. And then I'm just like, oh, hamburger! So this is the left hemisphere interpreter. I think we talked a little bit about this. This part of the brain takes whatever information it gets and tries to make a plausible explanation for it, even if it has no idea what's really happening. So yeah, I told you about the split brain people. You do the
chicken and
the chicken and the snow shovel. All right, good. I won't go over that again. But there's the other one. The other one was this that I remembered that he gave just the right brain card that said walk. So the guy gets up and starts walking, and then he's like, well, Jimmy, why are you walking across the room? And the real reason is because the card told him to walk. He said, I need to get a coat. He's not lying. He's just believing his own left hemisphere interpreter. Or how Theseus describes the poet's vocation. Can somebody else read? Yes, please.
And as imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. Such tricks hath strong imagination, that if it would but apprehend some joy, it comprehends some bringer of that joy. Or in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear.
I mean, it's really almost uncanny, don't you think? I mean, that's what's describing exactly what's happening. See why he had to read the whole library and be back in time from 400 years from now? Or just pay attention, I guess, right? So the imagination bodies forth. Just your visual interpreters just cranking out hamburgers and shoes and Michael Busanich or whatever his name was, and just all these things swirling around. And then the poet's pen, the left brain hemisphere interpreter, turns into shapes and gives to airy nothing. All right, so this is the paralyzing anxiety meet hamburger. And then yeah, and then so it's that was it. I thought that was longer. All right. So that was that. So now let's get to the full time to the play. If I can turn these lights on again. So why again the war in fairyland? The Indian boy. So what is caught, and even Garber in one of her less sober moments thinks the reason that they're fighting over the Indian boy. Well, Garber said he's the emblem of desire, and then so and then like hints that there might be something even on Oberon's side and Titania's side to this desire, like kind of sexualizing it. Let's 2:119, page 18. This is the passage where the ever reliable Puck describes what happened.
Is it page 18?
Yeah. Can I get a Puck?
What page is
It's
it?
page 18, but it's you know what? You're using a different. This is the problem. There's different ways of different editors break up the acts and scenes differently in different editions. So it's 2:118 in mine, but no, it could be 2. No, it could be either 1:2 or 2:2. What would it be? Because they would have included the. No, it would be 1:3. 0:13. What do you got the?
What are the first words?
No, it's just so right.
That's
Okay, I'll find it.
that's not an approved.
That's okay. Well, can I get a puck?
The king doth keep his revels here tonight. Take heed the queen come not within his sight. For Oberon is passing fell in wrath, because that she as her attendant hath a lovely boy stolen from an Indian king. She never had so sweet a challenging. And jealous Oberon would have the child, knight of his train, to trace the forest wild. But she perforce withholds the loved boy, crowns him with flowers, and makes him all her joy.
Okay, that's good. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So this is the so jealous Oberon. She has her attendant hath a lovely boy. So he's lovely. That's sort of let's say an interesting description for a boy. Stolen from an Indian king. And jealous Oberon would have the child. Have the child what? Knight of his train. What is that? I think that's a sexual joke. An euphemism? Yeah, he's the knight of my train, if you get my drift. It's got Monty Python's code. And to trace the forest wild. Okay, now I'm kind of. This is something that you don't want to do, because now to trace the forest wild sounds like another euphemism for something crazy, right? But okay. Somebody else interpret these lines for me while I gather myself. Yes, sir.
He wants, Oberon wants the boy to be his knight, be his sort of steward for equipment.
Yeah.
And she wants to raise him because, one of her vestal virgins, her handmaiden's kid, and she probably should take care of him, actually.
Okay, good, good. And I think that we can put a little twist on that too, following your interpretation of the fools need to man up in this world. That he wants to make a knight of him, you know, and wants to make a man of him. And what's Titania doing with him? Yeah, I got him perforce, mind you. Withholds the loved boy, crowns him with flowers, and makes him all her joy. So, remember I was telling you about Venus and Adonis, and the and Anne Hathaway way back first day of class about this. It was a long time ago, so I'll remind you of what the poem is about. It's really a fun poem. So Venus is portrayed as just this really overbearing, just big lump of absorbing femininity that's just swallowing up this little Adonis. It's like, quit kissing me, quit kissing me, quit kissing me, and so and she's just smothering, overbearing, older, you know, just and poor little Adonis is trying to squirm out and like gives her a kiss if she promises to leave him alone. And so I'm thinking kind of something along those lines might be going on here. And so, you know, he's trying to rescue the poor kid. You know, you don't want to get smothered like this. And then also, it's did I mention this? That must be important later. But yeah, so I don't see the sex thing. You can if you want, but I don't. And then we should probably talk a little bit about the infidelities on the next page when when the kids are fighting. And then so Titania, then I must be thy lady, but I know you're stolen away from fairyland and in the shape of Corin all day, playing on pipes of corn, investing love to Amorous Felida. So they're just, you know. So I do think that we can probably say that Titania and Oberon are somewhat in the cotland of doing crazy stuff with crazy people, because they sort of belong to that other realm of like classical mythology and folk mythology where all this stuff's really happening. I mean, who's the only one that can see them? Who's the only ones that can see them? That they've got, you know, like an actual sort of proof interaction with. Yeah, bottom the rustic folk, the ones who actually believe this nonsense. Do you think that like if you like believe in monsters, then like, monsters can eat you? I'm trying to sell this to my daughter, that she'll stop believing in monsters and they can't get her. But if you believe, they'll eat you. I don't know if I should do that because then she just starts crying in the middle of the night. I'm not a very good dad. All right. So, but all of that, you know, we've got to get to the big questions. So let's just take for granted that Oberon at least thinks that giving the love juice to Titania will make her be genuinely unfaithful with a jackass. Why? Why would Oberon cuckold himself to a donkey? Don't look at me like I know the answer.
Maybe he doesn't.
The strong notion that a donkey is the best in bed.
Yeah, so but why would you, I mean, like if you're like your wife, you want to like It's like, hey, you know what you really like is this guy I know is really good in bed, and I'm gonna hook you up.
Well, it's you though. I mean, I can be like representative of Mr. Mind and get it on with Mr. Mind. During the day, I'm done.
I don't know if I'm exactly following. So kind of like, well, like the same, like, I might be wrong on the exact precise list this is, but I read a book about the viewing habits of internet porn people, and I think they said of male heterosexual porn searches that cuckold porn is like number 4 of the most popular. Is it something like that? Or like a memorable, I remember something from Malcolm X. He was talking about a friend of his that was a male prostitute that like old white guys would pay him to have sex with their young wives or something. Something like that, maybe? Is that what you were saying, or am I totally off?
I don't know.
Because like, what's the like, what would be like the evolutionary advantage of that? Like, why would people desire that? Is it just like pervert and you just like walk it off and you just like, or do you think there's something to it? Or do you have something better to get us off this road to ruin?
I'm not hugely Oh, were you gonna talk? I'm sorry. Were you putting it this whole time?
No, not this whole time.
Oh.
I was that time though.
Well, there's 2 things. Number 1 would be for what you're talking about, would the evolutionary advantage be that if you get your wife pregnant and then another guy comes and has sex with your wife, and he might think that that's his child as well, meaning that there's more protective males to protect the offspring.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it'd be like it's a great female strategy, right? So this is so you get the this of course the famous bus study has backed this up. One of the strategies that women use when they're ovulating, they become more attracted to the taller masculine feature thing while they're ovulating, but and then they're more likely to have affairs. They're more fantasy prone. If any of you happen to be a stripper, don't take the pill, because you make 3 times as much when you're ovulating as when you do when you're not. And then if you're taking the pill, you make less even than strippers that are on the pill when they're menstruating. So so but then the strategy is, so you get nice guy Magoo, and you've got him all at home, and he's going to take care of you no matter what, like he's that guy. But then there's a I don't know what's a good, like, Antonio Banderas. I don't even know what attractive men are anymore. Well, there's some attractive man, but I mean, I'd love to, but he's not going to stay around, like he's not. But like, if he gets me pregnant, and then Mr. Magoo raises the kid, then I get the best of both worlds. I get my kid protected, and I get the superior genes. So you see how, like, this tendency, we can explain this tendency. But what's going on here is different, right? Because Oberon would not be the father. He would be the stooge.
Which is why there are 2 things. One was considering your thought, but a different train of thought.
Please.
It could be that part of it might be that Oberon had slept with Hippolyta, which she mentions, and in Shakespeare nothing is really mentioned unless it's like important. And so it could be that he wants her to have an affair as well.
It happens to me too.
And so that way, because she held it up against him at one point in their fight.
Yeah.
So if she has an affair as well, then she can't put that against him.
Okay, so sort of a politic thing. And they're fairies, they probably don't have to have kids when they don't want to. They can probably just, like the, yeah, you were first.
I sort of read that she was sort of talking with authority, so he wanted to sort of embarrass her in a really big, sort of awful way. And then he sort of realized, like, what all that would mean to him, and how that, he had second thoughts, is what I got out of it.
Yeah.
So he went in thinking he was going to play his trick, and he goes, oh, well, I can't stand this. He suddenly realizes what he's actually doing.
So he just sort of got carried away and then was like, and then had buyer's remorse. And then you, and then you.
say but didn't Eugenius did with Theseus as well, so.
Yeah, well, they all just rattled
Yeah.
off. They're both pretty so
But-
maybe they're just past that.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, this problem will come up again with Othello. I mean, we'll see this really. I guess we're gonna have to revisit the whole couple porn thing with Othello. Maybe we should switch plays. Maybe we'll do both Henry 1 and 2. Oh wait, you were, and then you.
Well, the fairy people are like immortal, right? So maybe they just don't care. Maybe their values are different because they live forever. They don't really, it doesn't bother them. But I don't know. And then maybe if Oberon, by telling her to do that, maybe then he actually I don't remember. Never mind.
All right, fair enough. That happens to me all the time. And you.
So Titania was really into the boy, and maybe Oberon wanted the ass to be a distraction from the boy.
Aha! Because he knew that the ass wouldn't last, but the boy might.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sounds anytime you don't have to talk about cuckold porn, I'm going with that one. I like that one. And then also I just want to just lastly throw out there that maybe that sex was never going to happen. Maybe it's not that kind of party. All right, and then we've got this. Yeah, we got a minute. We've got the Titania's reason at work on 38 and 9. We don't have to close read this or anything. I just want to point it out so like more of the feeling comes first and then just attaches itself. I mean, literally, that's what the fairy juice does, right? The same thing that your brain does. It creates a feeling, and then the first thing you see, it attaches to it, and then starts reasoning, and then she gives the rational explanation of why she's attracted to Bottom. And then so all right, so you guys know all about cuckolds and cuckoo jokes, right? You know what cuckoos do? The birds. Does anyone not? If you would like me to explain it, okay. All right. Cuckoos are a species of bird that goes into another bird's nest, knocks their eggs out, lays eggs, flies off, sort of like the strategy we were just talking about, and then the other birds come and raise the eggs. And then so in that bird, that's got no cost and just benefit.
Is that a type of bird or
Yeah.
a certain?
That's a type of bird. And the other thing that they do is they sing cuckoo, cuckoo, which is cuckold, cuckold. So it's so there's lots of cuckoo and cuckold jokes in Shakespeare. Tons. It was the worst thing to be. Which makes the porn thing kind of a problem. But well, we'll see. We'll get there. I'll figure it out by then. And then so Bottom happens to be singing a cuckoo song. I think it's just a little joke. And then so Titania talks about the I pray thee, gentle mortal, sing again. My ear is much enamored of thy note. So is mine eye enthralled of thy shape. And thy fair virtue's force, perforce, she loves perforce, doth move me on the first view to say, I swear, I love thee. And then Bottom points out that her reason is busted. Like literally. Yeah, truth, reason. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, reason and love. Yeah. Thou art as wise as thou art beautiful. That's twist. And then and then this is the part that disturbed / got caught into it. Titania, out of this wood do not desire to go. Thou shalt remain here, whether thou wilt or no. Is that cool? No, well, she's at this point abducting. Right? Just hey, you want to stay? Because if not, you're going to anyway. So then there's that, and then 31, 54. That was that. And then later, on 65 plus. Sometimes my notes don't make entirely amount of sense. Yeah. So and then gives them all of the and then at the end of the scene, tie up my lover's tongue and bring him silently. So but this is sort of I kind of feel like is the fate of the Indian boy that Oberon's trying to save him from, because this isn't cool, right? This is actually it's also a recurrent trope in romance epics. So like knights in like the great late medieval, early modern romance epics like Tasso's Armida, yeah, Ariosto's Alcina, Spencer's Acratia. So there'd be this temptress in the woods, and she'd be in some sort of bower, and the knight would come through all manly, and then she would tempt him, and then he'd end up, just sleeping the day away, and then eventually get turned into, like a pig or a tree or something, and he just gets unmanned by these feminine figures in these bowers. And so that's basically, so poor Bottom just gets kidnapped. So then the other big question then is, do Titania and Bottom do it?
It seems like when Oberon sort of interjects that he says something that makes you think that maybe they did. I forget what his words were, but
Let's find it.
insinuated.
Should be right around here. So we got beginning of Act 4, 59.
You could just be being mean also.
All right, no, that's not. Yeah, we got, and then Oberon's apology is on page 61. All right, that's before we get there. We've got a minute. So so you've got to picture Bottom, right? He's this rustic guy in the woods, and just this guy. And then Titania is the fairy queen. She's just, stunningly gorgeous, amazing, can do anything, can grant any wish, literally any wish. So you're thinking like it's a guy, he drinks beers, watch football. And then this beautiful I Dream of Jeannie type character, springs out and says, "I will grant any wish you want." So what is let's look at the scene. What does Bottom ask for? Scratched head, some honey, some simple music, hay. That's his great desire for hay, and a handful of dried peas. So to me, this is evidence that Bottom's not into it, and we know the mimetic desire reason. But this is just my big rejoinder to Cott. So you hear about this animalistic sex thing, right? So what comes to your mind is like really passionate, throwing clawing, throwing clothes and stuff and all over, right? But you know who has animalistic sex? People. Have you ever seen animals have sex? It's not animalistic. They look like they're just waiting to get something over with, and they're already like going over trying to eat. This is sort of dull look on their face, just like. So it's this. And Bottom, we'll see this in Falstaff too. We'll talk more about it then. But there's this great kind of comic character. It's one of my favorite kinds of comic character because they reverse the whole mechanism of desire. They instead of chasing after desire by their just kind of stupidity, they get desire chasing after them. So like instead of trying to land the hot fairy queen, like just by his not wanting it, like it drives her insane, and then desire is just chasing after him. Hey, want me, and it's just like.
Bosch, is that right?
Goya. Goya is my favorite Goya painting. Is Kronos devouring his children. It's this big, shaggy-haired guy biting the head off of a baby. He put it in his basement. All right.
I tried really hard to figure out what the ass symbolizes. There was so much in there about the ass.
Yeah.
He's just like in that time, an ass was just a truly sexual being.
Yeah. That's what Kot says. I really just had you read Kot because I want to argue against Kot. No, but actually the reason that I had you read Kot was that a lot of people think that that essay is the most influential essay on Midsummer Nights Dream in the 20th century. And the big, aside from that movie, the big famous performances of Midsummer Nights Dream have been very Kot influenced. In particular, one in the 70s, the Royal Shakespeare Company, and it was just really weird, and there were a lot of bubbles, and it was just a white set, and the whole bottom costume was just a nose, and there was like when the only thing I remember from the description and the photos they had of it was when they were taking Bottom to Titania's bower, the fairies had him picked up and shoved the forearm between his legs like that. They were carrying him off. That's the only thing I remember. I don't know. Yeah. Whoa. Who wants the awesome one? I'll take the awesome one.
Pass it back here.
Yeah. All right, there goes the fourth wall. Yes. Can I see a hand? Right. And the other thing that I'm real super good at. Oh, for crying out, okay. All right. So, to sleep perchance to dream. What plays that from? Hamlet, yeah. And so he wants to kill himself, right? This is the famous to be or not to be speech. And the reason that he doesn't is because he's thinking of like death as sleep, and he's like, but wait a second, sleeping kind of sucks. All right. So there's in the classical tradition, which is everybody knows that dreams are super meaningful and predict the future, right? But not all of them, because sometimes they don't. So there's the true dreams that pass through a horn gate, and then there's the false ones that pass through an ivory gate, and they actually have these gates. I think it's in Hades. It depends on the poem. So I don't think that's what's going on in this. So then we pass some time. And then so we've got the three ways of looking at the meaning of dreams. And one is the prophetic, which is a correctly interpreted dream can predict personal and even world events. Dreams provide clues into the future happenings of some great cosmic narrative. And I don't think that they have that they've done the work to find out if this is a cultural universal, but you see it a lot, particularly in. I'm trying to think of like an old great epic like Gilgamesh and there's lots in the Bible, there's lots in Virgil, Homer of dreams being a big thing. So we might be sort of disposed to think that way. But remember our comedy tragedy thing. That means that everything follows a law of necessity in all future events. Questions on the reading for the quiz.
Why does not say that all characters is promiscuous? Why is it promiscuous?
Does anyone know?
Well, right after he says that, he goes on to explain how they cheat on each other or whatever, or at least Titania and Theseus are together, and Oberon and the Queen of the Amazon people. So they're kind of promiscuous in that way.
Did you hear that?
Oberon sleeps with the Queen of the Amazon, I forgot her name, and Theseus sleeps with Titania, like right before they get married, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So his point in the thing was is he just took it for granted that that all of the lovers were wife swapping or girlfriend swapping and having threesomes and stuff, and that it wasn't just the lovers, that it was also the royalty and also the fairy people. Yeah.
Why did you think there were secrets in Midsummer Nights Dream? I didn't quite understand.
It was commissioned for a wedding, so everybody there would know each other. No like inside jokes.
Oh, okay.
So one of the ongoing sort of there's a line of thought that's sort of out of favor, but probably kind of true, that Shakespeare's kind of writing to two levels, and he's got his little inside bunch that will get the high jokes and the sexual innuendo and the in jokes too, and then there's just people like us that are just kind of going along going, oh, it rhymes. Another question back there?
Why does not think that Shakespeare included them since he found them to have no bearing on the plot? That is, the characters, the nobility and stuff like that.
I think that was just sort of the same thing, like, because the audience like knew each other, the people who didn't really have any bearing in the play represented like people in the community. They're supposed to like represent royals or whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's what Cott says. Yeah.
So, I know he's referencing a painter, but he thought he'd derive his animal eroticism from.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying it wasn't Chagall, but it was.
The Cott's vision of Titania's court, that was charming.
2-foot men and women salivating. Blowing hot.
Yeah. So this as I said, I'm a little hostile to Cott's reading. I think that, I don't know, like, I mean, anybody gonna say vote and think that Cott's right? Anyone wants to say he's more than 50% right, but less than 100% right? Does anybody think that any sex at all happened in Midsummer Nights Dream? Any inside jokes or anything? We got one hesitant, two hesitant.
Wouldn't we have to like be the people that it was actually designed for, the insiders?
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, you can tell people have sex in Shakespeare plays. I mean, it's not.
What are the hints?
And we'll see it happen.
It's like in movies, they never say, well, some movies, in like TV shows and stuff, they don't generally say it explicitly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in my room.
Yeah, but we'll see. Like, when we get to Measure for Measure, they do a bed trick, because this guy tries to coerce this girl into having sex with him, and then she says okay, but they switch him with the girl that likes the guy, and then they turn off all the lights, so he goes in and has sex with the other girl. And it's a bed trick. It's funny. So, I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of people. Do we want to go over the dreams and the brain science PowerPoint first, or do you want to talk about this first? Today's class has two parts. PowerPoint first? Okay. Yeah, we can yammer on about this or not. I'm all about these PowerPoints now. I don't really know how to play it. Here we go. That's not a good sign. Let's try this again. Thank you. Thank you. One of you looks a little fluey. Don't want the flute. All right. So, I guess. Well, we had the uncannily asked questions. Huh? A feature peculiar to Shakespeare is the blank of love. Yeah. The lack of distinctness between Demetrius and Lysander and Helena and Herminia means that the lovers are essentially interchangeable. Oh, that was awesome. Why does Cott say that the behavior of all the characters, even the royal ones, is promiscuous?
Because they all trade partners as
Yeah, they're a bunch of. Blank is the first to arise, though she had gone to sleep last. For her, it was the craziest night. Why she changed lovers? She is ashamed. She has drunk too much.
Yeah.
Insert joke here. For Cott, the slimy-haired, hairy, sticky creatures that the fairy song evokes arouses feelings of sexual blank. Revulsion was the. I'm looking for some sort of revulsion. I mean, what are you guys into, man? Describe Cott's Titania. Yeah. Oh, Cott. So see, this is why, between you and me, I'd have been just fine if the 60s never happened. But the characteristics of the ass are most important. What characteristics of the ass are most important? Yeah, those things. How does Cott describe what takes place when Titania falls for bottom? That's not a terribly well-worded question.
It's like real and unreal, repulsive.
He said like it was a liberated sexual bestial desire.
Doesn't it say she raped him pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take either of those, any of those. Scott thinks that the liberated lovers were their real selves and their blanks. Yeah, strange fantasy, whatever. And what famous Goya does Scott think resembles the bestiality of the Midsummer Nights Dream? And then